Miles Media are going to be the people who are presenting today. You know, they manage our website, they help develop it, and they're an ongoing partner with us. This is CA, and this is Patrick. So I will let them take it away.
All right, great. So I'm CA Clerk. I've been with Miles for 18 years. We work with destinations, DMOs, destination marketing organizations like Mammoth Tourism, to help them do all kinds of different things. I have with me Patrick Rogers.
So I'm a content director with Miles and work with a variety of different destinations around the country, including Mammoth Lakes, as well as sort of this touring show of Google Wisdom. So it's a pleasure to be here, and hopefully over the next hour or so we will enlighten you with lots of tools of wisdom that you can take back and use for your own businesses.
So we have a whole section that we're going to go through that talks about things that you can do to help maximize your business inside these products. But first we'll go up to kind of the top level and talk about what we're doing here. So Miles is working with some product teams at Google. They have a program they call the Google DMO Partnership. And that is sort of an outreach program to destinations like Mammoth Lakes Tourism to help them understand how people are viewing their destination, and then what the destination looks like, and then which tools they can use to help maximize their own exposure.
And DMO is Destination Marketing Organization. That's what we are classified as in the industry.
So Miles is helping to sort of act as the glue between those two organizations. The DMO, in this case, Mammoth Lakes Tourism, and then Google, who is looking to kind of partner with those destinations. And the overall goal of the program is for us to understand how people search for Mammoth Lakes, and then what kind of things do they see when they do those searches, right? So what we do is take a look at all of the different products that make up the Google ecosystem and all of the different travel products, and we look throughout those to see where are people seeing things, what things do they see in there. It includes search, it includes travel guides, it includes apps like Trips, if you're familiar with that. There's actually many more than this. There's a whole bunch of different products where your business information is feeding into those products. And that's what makes this so important. So the reason that we are here is that all of these products are important to people making a decision about coming to Mammoth Lakes. They're also important to your individual businesses. And that's because all of those products are built off of your information. So if we look at how all of those products, where does the information come from for search or for travel guides or the Trips app? Trips app is a great example. Okay, where does all the information come from? Where do the photos come from? Where do the descriptions, the amenities, all of the information, and that's all coming from your business listings. Okay, so all these map listings down here where you are going in and managing your information is all trickling up into these products. And that's what people are using to make a decision about whether or not they want to come here. They're also using it to move around when they're in the market to decide where to eat and where to go and all the things to do.
And so as part of the audit process that we did sort of up front to sort of set the strategy for Mammoth to go through and do an audit of all of these different listings. And what we found was that there was actually a pretty significant amount of information that was missing from local businesses. So about 49% of all of the businesses in the area were missing some part of their information. Now, sometimes that's not a big deal. If you're a hotel, you don't really need to worry about business hours. But if you're a restaurant or an attraction, then business hours can be a really big thing, because if someone's trying to decide via their phone whether or not they're going to go visit, then that can create a really negative user experience if they show up and it turns out that you're not open on Tuesdays. We also found that about 34% of listings were not verified. And verification is essentially kind of Google's security measure to make sure that the people who own the business are then the ones who are claiming and managing that business listing. So slightly more than 1/3 of all of the businesses have not ever tried to manage their own business information, which is not shockingly higher than anywhere else in the rest of the country, but is still something that sort of leaves room for improvement. And having a complete listing, according to Google's own data, can have a pretty significant impact on sort of how well your business is converting off of its visibility within the Google ecosystem. So a completed listing is about 7 times more likely to generate a click from a user It also influences how users feel about a business. So about a 2.5 to 2.7 times more reputable as sort of user perception was concerned. And they're also about 70% more likely to actually follow through and visit a location if what they found was really complete and high quality sort of content and information. And we're not talking about sort of a very small audience here. Obviously, Google is not an unknown player in the world of the internet. And to kind of illustrate how much visibility businesses are getting sort of within Google compared to what you might be seeing for your own business within something like website analytics. This is for 1 year of data for a visitor center in Philadelphia. And during that year, they had about 11,500 visits to their website. So just a little bit less than 1,000 visits per month. They were viewed more than 250,000 times in search results, and they appeared in Google Maps more than 11 million times. So that's data that they were able to pull out of their Google My Business listing and then compare the amount of visibility that they had within these Google products versus what they actually knew prior to seeing that Google My Business data. And while this is obviously a pretty extreme example that we use to illustrate how important all of this is, we have seen fairly typically that businesses are receiving several times more visibility within these products that they're not tracking compared to some of the places that they are. So with that in mind, what we're going to talk about today are sort of 11 very practical sort of tactics that you can use to help maximize the visibility that your business has, and also to convert more effectively when you do have audience that's seeing you in these products.
All right, number one is make sure that your business is verified and up to date. So this is kind of that first step. Patrick mentioned that verification. It's about a third. That's pretty typical for destinations. When we look at them, about a third of them are not verified. Just an indicator that those are people who aren't necessarily managing their business listings and where there's an opportunity to improve. There's also, as you will see as we go through these, there's also quite a lot of insight data that you can get if you are verified that you won't really be able to see unless you do that verification. You can tell whether you are verified or not if you search the name of your business, and then you look at the knowledge panel. So this is the knowledge panel that shows up in mobile or on the right-hand side of the screen in the search. And then it will have some little block in here, this little shield that says own this business or claim this business. If you see that, then you are not verified. If you don't see that, then you are, which can be a whole other thing. So that's just the first section. If you do happen to know that you are not verified and you want to, we have the ability to do instant verification here today, and that will be something that Mammoth Tourism will be able to provide on an ongoing basis for businesses that do need help with that. Once you are verified, we're going to go through a whole bunch of different things. This is all in Google My Business, in the dashboard in Google My Business. So if you're familiar with that, you've logged in, you can manage your business. These are all the things we'll be looking at today are part of that dashboard. This one is the info tab. And the info tab is name, address, phone number, those kinds of things, the basics about your business. Some of those are pretty obvious. I'm going to pull out a couple of different things here that we can point to. One of them is business descriptions. And so this is a thing that was used to be there, then was taken away, and now it's back again, which is why we put it in this presentation. So for most business types, you can put in a business description now. You go into the info tab, and you scroll down to the bottom, it will say add a business description, and then you can type that in there. You have 750 characters to describe your business, and then that will show up in your knowledge. And that's something that has moved around. It's been a little bit of a moving target for Google. So it's nice to have that control back. And you'll see there's a few other places in here where we're getting things back in the Google My Business admin that were either taken away from other products or other parts of the ecosystem are now kind of become available inside this dashboard. Okay, hours are critically important. This is increasingly important for businesses, the types of searches, right? Is this place open? Making a decision about whether or not to go there, the hours are really important. Because if you have two businesses and you're trying to decide which pizza place I'm going to go to, the one with the hours, where you're guaranteed that they're open, is the one you're going to go to versus the one that doesn't have hours, or that doesn't look active. Okay, and there's another really important reason to do that. This isn't just the daily hours. You definitely want to do those, but you also want to do your Labor Day hours. Okay? Every one of your special hours, you want to make sure that you have updated that. And if you are verified and you have your notifications turned on, then Google will remind you about that. So the ones that I manage, they've been reminding me all week to set up my stuff for Labor Day. Those are all good things to do. Again, if you're closed on Labor Day, you need to make sure it says you're closed. Otherwise, it will say, I don't know. And now you have that question mark of whether or not someone's going to come into your business. One of the other really important reasons is that these hours get used all over the place in the product in increasingly frequent places. So this is a quick answer. This is, and there's more to this page. There's more organic results, and then there's a knowledge panel over there for this particular business. But it says, when does business name open? And instead of directing you to go look in the knowledge panel, they're actually just giving you that answer right now, which they cannot do if you don't have your hours official, right? So that's a pretty clear example. When is it open? Here's the answer. No click-through, nothing else that's happening there, but they've gotten the information they're looking for. When we get to insights, Patrick is going to talk about insights, and there's a bunch of new tools that have come into Google My Business Insights. One of the changes that was made is exposures like this now count in there for your business. So you can get a better picture of where people are looking at your information, how many of them there are, because things like this quick answer will be shown as part of the pie of how many people looked at your business inside the listings. Okay, so that's a really recent change to how they're counting those exposures. For hotels, I don't know if we have any hotels in here. It does apply to other businesses. I just use this for hotels because there are a lot more of them. This is also in the info tab, and if you scroll down, there's a section called attributes. And attributes are essentially these little tags, okay? And the tags have several different settings. So this one is not applicable. So the plus means I could add beach access if that was there. The check mark means there is a bar on site. And the no symbol means no, it is not all-inclusive. Those are the choices for those tags. The hotels have several dozen of those tags, and that helps to classify them, and it helps with search. But other business types have them as well. Restaurants have a much smaller set of those. But those are things like vegan or vegetarian or gluten-free, things that will come into play there when people are doing searches. So it's a really important thing to pay attention to in your listing, because they do get added pretty frequently, and your users will add them, your customers will add them over time, but it's definitely worth checking this out. On this hotel, this particular hotel, if I went in here, almost any time I would go in here, there would be 3 or 4 of them that were checked that shouldn't be, or that weren't checked that should be, because they get sort of jumbled up over time. So definitely a good thing to check. It has a lot to do with how people search. So if I'm looking for vegan restaurants near me, even if it isn't in your name, it will come up in that search if you have the attributes selected.
So one of the other really important pieces of this is to make sure that your NAP is consistent, because if you're not well rested, then the rest of your digital marketing gets a lot more difficult. NAP stands for name, address, and phone number. And on a sort of very superficial level, obviously having sort of consistent information that's accurate would be beneficial to people finding you and being able to call you or find you. But this is an area where we actually see quite a few problems. So when you log in, if you haven't logged in before or you haven't logged in a while, you may see a prompt towards the top that tells you that you have updates suggested for your information. If you're verified, then you have control over whether or not you approve those changes. But it will suggest them based on either things that it finds in other places around the web or things that users have suggested on your behalf. And so that's where things can get a little tricky, because you want to obviously be presenting a consistent picture. But Google is scraping sort of thousands of business directories all around the web, some of which are, highly relevant and highly visible and you know about. Other ones are super obscure and you would have to go looking for them intentionally in order to find them. But it's looking at all of these different sites and it's comparing what you have entered in your business information to what it's seeing on all of those other sites. And if what it sees is an agreement sort of all the way around, then that not only means that your information is consistent no matter where somebody finds you, but it also actually contributes to the visibility of your business, because the algorithm will have sort of a higher level of trust for the quality and the correctness of that information, because it wants to be it wants to be certain that it's presenting the correct answer. So if it's finding 4 different phone numbers, then that is going to slowly undermine the visibility of your business. One thing that we hear sort of often is, I don't understand why people are calling my wholesale number instead of my retail number, and that's because chances are they're finding that number somewhere else, or they haven't verified their business and that number was scraped off of a site and is now being presented as the actual business number rather than the number that the business owner wanted. So there are a number of different tools that you can use to understand how accurate and sort of cohesive your information is around the web. Moz Local is one, Yext is another. You'll find a lot of different options if you do a search for location data management tools. You'll find all sorts of different options there. But what that'll do is basically scrape a lot of the same sites that Google's algorithm is looking at, and it will sort of give you a rating of how accurate your information is across all of those different sites. So you might realize, that there are multiple Facebook pages that have been created for your business over the years that you didn't realize, and one of them has the wrong number on it. Or you moved 2 years ago and forgot to update that, in some site somewhere. And so that can be a really valuable tool for the amount of visibility that you have within the ecosystem, but also obviously the fact that you're never completely sure where somebody is finding you in some cases. And so if they do find you, you want to present them with clear and accurate information.
Okay, this is a super easy one. This is about pin placement on maps. And the pin placement is where Google thinks your business is located. And this is critically important when someone is trying to find it, because they're going to go in and say, I want directions to whatever the business is, whether it's walking or driving. In a lot of cases, that pin, if you're alone on a block, right, sometimes that will be really accurate. But a lot of the time, those pin placements are pretty random. So it's an important thing to look at, make sure that pin is placed where it should be for your business. If you have a large business, okay, like this resort, you would want to make sure that that pin is placed where the driveway would be, where you're going to come into the business. You don't want that pin placed on the meeting room entry or some other entry, so you want to pay attention to that. If you're in a very small place, chances are that pin isn't where it's supposed to be, right? Typically when I look at like the village here, anywhere where there's a bunch of businesses all right next to each other, the pins will be all jumbled up. And so if you think about being a consumer and you're looking for, I want to find where that shop is, and now you're wandering around inside that area trying to find it because the pin isn't placed correctly, that can be a really frustrating process. So good news is you can change it. It's really easy to do. You go into info here, and this little pin next to the address will give you the option. You can change your address, of course, but we'll give you the option of zooming in here and moving the pin around wherever you want it to be. So if you have a very large business, you can put it wherever you would drive up. If you have a very small business, you can make sure that that pin actually represents where you would be in the village or in the mall or in the whatever building you are in. So that's a really easy change to make, and it can make a big difference for people finding the business and actually getting in there. And the other thing is you will notice that these drift over time. So it's not a bad idea every couple of months to go in there and just make sure that pin is still where it's supposed to be. I think part of it is just the Maps update, and it tries to shuffle the pins around to fit in when new businesses or new addresses come in, and it makes adjustments. And I think other times people will go in and make a suggestion that a pin is in a different place. So definitely worth checking out every so often to make sure that that is consistent.
So Insights is a really interesting offering that has a lot of data that you won't find sort of anywhere else. It is sort of one of the biggest sections within Google My Business, and they've actually overhauled it quite a bit in the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks. And there's a lot of new data in there that is really a great complement to any data that you're getting from your website analytics or your social channels. Or other sources like that. So one thing that you'll find is how customers are searching for your business and where you're showing up. And that'll be broken out into 2 sections, direct and discovery. And so direct is somebody goes to Google, types in your business name, and that's a search and they find you. And so that, obviously, if you have a high level of direct search traffic, then that means you have really strong brand recognition. People know your name. They're looking for, how to find you. Discovery is a category search. So if you are a restaurant and someone searches for restaurants in Mammoth Lakes, then you have appeared in that search result alongside all of your sort of competition. And there is a little prompt right here that says businesses with recent photos typically receive more clicks to their website. And that's something that we'll actually touch on a little bit later, both with data and some of the sort of strategies that you can use around photography. So you'll also find data on where customers are viewing the business listing, so you can see how often you appear in search versus how often you appear in maps. That's an area where, again, we typically see businesses getting a lot more visibility than they actually realize. You'll also be able to see what actions people took after they viewed your business listing. Did they click to call? Did they click through to your website? Did they ask directions? You can see where they asked directions from. So if you have like an out-of-home buy, like for a billboard or something, you can actually see whether that's driving you any additional visibility, potentially. You can also see how often your photos were viewed, and then have that benchmarked against other local businesses in your same category. And that is where, again, sort of your photos receive 28% more views than similar businesses. So you can really start to sort of benchmark yourself and your performance against sort of your competitive set, and really start to understand not only how visible your business is within all of these products, but also how well your site potentially is, or your listing is performing in comparison to other businesses within your category. One other area that they just added back that they had taken out of analytics several years ago is queries used to find your business. So this is actually the keywords that people typed in when they found your listing within search results. This was actually super valuable data within analytics that they took away around 2012, and now it has resurfaced for only for verified businesses within Google My Business. So that potentially will show you sort of how well you're doing on a certain keyword if you are optimizing your website for certain search terms, and whether you are actually appearing in the searches that you want to be, which can be a really important thing to know for sort of digital strategy overall. You'll also see what your business is known for. So these are the things that local guides and other users are sort of checking when they have visited your location. They may get a prompt asking them to review or to confirm certain pieces of information. And this will show you sort of where you're doing the best. And that too is kind of tied back to that amenities and attributes tab that CA referenced earlier. So you can really sort of start to get a sense of what people are saying about your business, for better or worse, and also kind of take action based on that potentially. So in addition to seeing sort of 90 days worth of data in all of those charts, you can also download historical data. So you can download data all the way back to the point at which you were verified. So that is sort of day one, and then it counts forward forever. So you can go back and download regular sets of data, create sort of comparative charts to see how well you're performing over time. You could download quarterly reports and look at your year-over-year seasonal performance. There's quite a bit of opportunity there. You would just choose your location, and then from the Actions tab, choose Download Insights, and that will then give you a custom date range that you can select so that you can pull sort of whatever report you want across a specific time period.
Okay, number 5 is about reviews. The first thing, so we're going to talk about why you would respond to a review, why the reviews are important. But the first thing I'll point out is you want to make sure that you know when someone does a review. So if you don't have this setting already, once you're in the GMB dashboard, you go to Settings, and there are a whole bunch, you'll see this again later on, there are a whole bunch of different checkboxes here. Right? And that top checkbox says customer reviews. Anytime you get a review, you're going to get an email to the address that you have the business verified to that will tell you that someone has posted a review. And that's really important so that you can try to find and you know when you have a review, most important for the negative reviews. And here's why. Okay? This is the review. We'll come back to that in a minute. With TripAdvisor or Yelp, TripAdvisor is a really good example if you're familiar with that. From the hotel side of things, TripAdvisor is a really easy use case. If you have better reviews, if you have better rankings, if you go from number 3 to number 2 in your area, on average you can charge, they have metrics for this, $50 more than that, right? Like they have a very clear monetary value for why you want to pay attention to the reviews. It's not quite as clear with Google why that is important. So here's why it is important. This is called the 3-pack. And I'm sure you've seen this. This is a combination of a place, a location, and a category. Restaurants in Mammoth Lakes, right? Spas in Reno, whatever the location and a keyword. And actually back to what we were looking at here, in this one, what is your business known for? Like if you want to know what you're most likely to rank for in a 3-pack, you can look at this data, see what those keywords are, right? And then think about that in the location. That's something that you're going to be really likely to rank for in a 3-pack. This is an enormous amount of organic exposure for most businesses, is whatever combination of location and category you show up for in the 3-pack. Why are these businesses in the 3-pack? The answer to that question is this 3-legged stool here of these 3 things. So the nexus of these 3 things determines whether or not your business shows up in that 3-pack. Distance is how far you are from whoever is doing the searching. That's not something you can do anything about, right? You don't know where they are. It's not like you can move your business around anyway. So that's just a fixed point, and it's how far away they are doing that searching from, okay? Then the other 2 are relevance and prominence. And relevance has to do with your match for the category, has to do with that same thing that we looked at, what your business is known for. So if you are known for vegetarian stuff, then you're going to be much more relevant for a search that is vegan or vegetarian or vegetables or whatever that search combination is, right? So you have a little bit that you can do with that because you can start to influence that, but a lot of that is going to be beyond your control. It has to do with the category that you're in and how people view your business. Prominence is really the only one that you have any kind of control on right there, and that is largely about the number of reviews that you have and then the average star rating that you have, okay? So that prominence is the one that you have the most influence over in that 3-legged stool to try to get into that 3-pack. I'm by no means telling you that if you have a 5-star average or a 4.5-star average that you will be in that 3-pack, but I can tell you the reverse of that, which is that if you have a 4.5-star rating and you start to have a vector that looks like you're going down, you get a series of bad reviews in a row, you will fall out of that 3-pack. And it can be really hard to get back in. Okay, like this is that chart where we're getting all these exposures and then you will fall right off. I've seen that happen to restaurants and nightclubs where they just weren't doing a very good job of managing their businesses. They weren't paying attention to what was going on, and they didn't know that they had this downward vector of reviews. So that's why you want to make sure that you have that notification on so that you know when you get a review. We have sort of a best practices here for responding to positive reviews and responding to negative reviews. You certainly don't have to respond to the positive reviews. It's great if you do. If you do, these are the things that you want to keep in mind. Okay, there's sort of a format here to follow. You don't necessarily want to copy and paste that. But ideally, you want to say thanks for that. You want to mention your business name. You want to mention the location or the city that you are in because you're reinforcing these ideas that you are relevant for that city and that your business name is in there. And then you want to mention a product or a service that is related to what they asked, what they had, what they experienced, or what you serve. Okay, so we're doing all of these things because we want that to be indexed. If that gets picked up somewhere, if it gets shown as a highlight in your knowledge panel, which sometimes reviews do, we want to make sure that we've encapsulated all those pieces of information in the positive review. We want to make it as rich as possible so that if someone is reading that, they're getting all the things that we want them to get out of that response. Okay? Certainly don't have to respond to the positive ones. It doesn't gain you anything in terms of the algorithm. It's not like you will get better ranking if you responded to them. But it does make you look like you are an active business owner and gives you a little bit more text that you can put in there. The ones that you really want to pay attention to are the negative ones. And the reason you want to do that is that you have a really, really short window to try to catch a negative review and turn it around. The problem with waiting 6 weeks or 9 months to do a response is that people don't remember. They don't remember why they were there. They don't even remember they were in your business. They don't remember why they posted a negative review. It's really hard to turn that around if too much time has passed. So your best opportunity is to try to get on it that same day or the following day and try to mitigate that situation. So this is the opposite of what we did before, right? Before we said we're going to mention the name, we're going to do the product, we're going to say these things because we want them to be indexed and we want to reinforce that idea. On the negative review, we don't want to do that, right? We don't want to say, I'm from blah, blah, blah business in Mammoth, and right? Because we don't want those things to be associated and we don't want them to be indexed that way. Okay, short is better. Shorter, sweet, say you're sorry. Okay, this is customer service 101. You can say you're sorry. You can be sorry that you haven't met them, right? But you're saying that you're sorry so that they feel like you're responding to them. And then you want to try to get them to contact you offline. It's really your only opportunity. Okay, these reviews will be public, so you want to make sure that you're not getting in an argument with someone, right? It will be public and it will be permanently part of your business listing. You can go in and delete your own response, but for all intents and purposes, that's going to be public and permanent as part of your listing. So you just try to keep it short, try to mitigate the situation, whatever it is. If you can get them to contact you offline and you have resolved whatever their issue was, then you can politely ask them to change their review. Right? Listen, these reviews are really important to my business, so if you feel like I've solved your problem, would you mind changing that review to a 3? Even if you get them to put in a 3, it's basically a neutral number versus a 1, which is a pretty big drop, right, from a 4 or a 5. So lots of times if you can get someone to respond to you, you can catch that. Even if you don't, you've responded to it quickly and you've put something in there that helps mitigate whatever that situation is. I'm sorry that you had that experience. That isn't normally what happens. Whatever you can put in there so that if someone reads that review and they see that bad review, they can dismiss it and say, well, obviously that wasn't normal, right? That wasn't something that was normal. Or they can have, even better, they can read that review and go, obviously that guy's nuts, right? So I don't need to worry about his negative review. Okay? There is a mechanism to flag the reviews to get rid of them. There's a really, really narrow set of reasons that you can get rid of a review, which we'll look at in just a second. This is in your Google My Business dashboard. There's a section for reviews, and it will show you all of the reviews that are for your business in order, ones that you replied to and ones that you haven't, if you wanted to sort them that way. And here's how you can flag them. So you use this little overflow menu, and you can flag as inappropriate. These are the reasons that you can flag a business as inappropriate. They are pretty much what you would expect. They're bullying, they're hate speech. Okay, there's some I've never seen. Sexually explicit content I've never seen in a review for business, but I'm sure it's happened. So these are all pretty straightforward. If you have stuff that are in these upper categories, those will usually get taken off pretty easily. The ones that are a little more ambiguous are down here at the bottom. So the two that I'm going to focus on are impersonation and conflict of interest. Impersonation is a really good one to know. The terms of service are the review that you are posting has to be a first-person experience. Okay? So if you have, this is a great situation, it doesn't happen very often, but it's a great situation. You have somebody come in and they post a review and they say, my brother-in-law had the worst experience at this place and I would never go there. That's impersonation because it wasn't a first-hand experience. That's one you can flag as impersonation and you don't even have to respond to that one because you can get it removed because it wasn't a first-hand experience. Now, they may come back and say that it was them, right? Repost the thing and just say that it was them, in which case you're now into one of these other sections. But if you see that in there, you know that that isn't a valid review because it is first person.
Does that person get notified if their review is removed?
That is a good question. Let's circle back to that at the end. I'm not sure. Conflict of interest then is the last one, and these ones are pretty straightforward. So this is reviewing your own business, which none of us would do. Posting content about a former employee. So if you have an employee who's posted something that is against the terms of service and can be removed, that one's a real easy one. And then posting a comment about a competitor is another category that is a little more subjective, unfortunately. So you can post it that way, right? You can flag it and say this is a competitor, but you're relying on someone on Google's end who's a human in their support who's going to have to make a judgment call on that one. I'm not sure if that really was. Right? You have to be pretty obvious about it. And so then there are some other opportunities. When we talk about photos next, we're going to talk about a support option at the end of that. And that support option will also work for reviews. If you have a review that you just do not feel like it belongs on there, not because you don't like it, but because it isn't for your business, right? Somebody got confused, then you can go to GMG support and basically plead your case with them and say this doesn't belong on there for this reason.
So in addition to reviews, photos are really one of the key pieces of kind of this whole ecosystem when it comes to being really successful as an individual business. And that's because visual content really provides such a great sort of opportunity to differentiate yourself from your competitive set, but also to create a really appealing sort of first impression visually. And so going back to kind of what we've been talking about earlier in the Insights tab with businesses that post fresh photos tend to get more clicks, and the amount of visibility that photos have compared to competitors, adding new content, new photos on a semi-regular basis can be really beneficial to your visibility overall. And that doesn't always have to be some really highly produced photo that you hired a professional photographer to come in every 3 months and shoot photos. That's obviously great if you can do that, but sometimes it's just a matter of finding something that ties into the season, or a fresh sort of angle, or if you've obviously you've gone through something like a renovation or something like that, you want to be able to document sort of what's new, but adding sort of a new photo, once a quarter, or once or twice a year is a really good way to keep your business sort of highly visible within the ecosystem. Now, when you're thinking about what photos to choose, there are some very definite do's and don'ts as it relates to photo selection. What we have seen based on sort of reviews of thousands of businesses and dozens of destinations is that the balance is really informative. So something that really tells someone what to expect when they arrive at your destination, at your location, and so you want something that is going to sort of be a very sort of clear and accurate and lovely kind of, whether it's the interior or the exterior, almost doesn't matter. You just want something that is going to be a strong representation, and it's going to give people an accurate picture of what they should expect when they arrive. The other thing is it should be attractive, and so that is really, you may be appearing in listings alongside your competitive set, and you want a way to stand out, and so a photo that has really rich colors, a little bit heavier saturation, strong lighting, and a clear focus, good composition, these types of things will be highly beneficial when someone sees your listing for the first time. So obviously, a photo that somehow includes the sign, some sort of indicator of what the place is, that has bright lights, that sort of thing is going to perform a lot better than a photo that's kind of awkwardly cropping out part of what you're trying to look at. The lighting is kind of flat, the colors are sort of muddy. It's not really clear kind of what is part of the attraction and what is kind of adjacent structures. So those kinds of things, when you're thinking about photos, those will make a significant difference in the performance of your listing. So just as an example of that, these are obviously two very similar photos taken at the same place by the same photographer of the same plate of food. One of them has much better lighting and a much stronger composition, and it had 10 times the views within the ecosystem compared to the same photo with a less clear composition and not really as vibrant colors and lighting. So these types of things can really make a significant difference when it comes to your ability to reach consumers within the ecosystem. So when it comes to best practices, You certainly want to only upload photos that you own the rights to. And that is a key step, because if you go and pull photos off of a photographer's website that you don't have permission to use, then they actually have grounds for a copyright infraction that can cost you hundreds of dollars to start, and potentially significantly more depending on how well their legal team wants to represent them. So higher resolution photos, definitely you want to have photos that won't look pixelated, photos that will be really crisp. Don't heavily sort of Photoshop or filter your photos. You want, again, something that's very accurate. Don't composite or overly Photoshop things. Again, if you're not by the beach and you suddenly Photoshop yourself to be in the middle of the beach, that's not going to give people sort of a sense of where they're headed, and if they get there, they'll only be disappointed. You can add a logo or a credit, but make sure that it's only in one corner and that it doesn't take up more than 10% of the total sort of real estate of the image. Horizontal photos tend to perform better, and generally speaking, we have seen photos of spaces, interior spaces, perform a little bit better when they don't have a lot of people. Now, if you're a business that totally thrives on having a lot of people and that's what you want to convey, if you're a nightclub or something like that, obviously, there are cases where having people makes sense. But when you do have people, make sure that there are like people that you know and not just the random public, because then you would technically need clearances signed by those people if they are recognizable in your photo. So, having sort of just the space itself usually simplifies things a little bit, and you can control sort of the environment and the composition a little bit more than if you're trying to shoot around a lot of people in the space. The other big thing is to really make sure that your horizontals are straight and your verticals are vertical. It really can make a significant difference to the performance of the photo if your horizon is skewed. That actually produces or can hinder the performance of photos within the ecosystem. One other feature that's relatively new is once you're verified, you can add short videos about your business. So you can't post like your new commercial, but you can go and shoot just like a quick sort of 10-second, whether it's a pan across the room to sort of show the space, or somebody, proclaiming that those are the best pancakes they've ever had in their life. There are ways that you can incorporate video that will show up in the gallery for your business. However, video, they want vertical instead of horizontal, so they're expecting just kind of cell phone video, not a sort of heavily produced type of content for that. And then that can be added sort of directly through that same Photos dashboard within GMB, and will appear in all of the places where your listing appears. If you have photos in your business listing that you do not want to have in your business listing because they line up with one of these policy violations, then there are mechanisms through which you can flag that. So if you look at your knowledge panel in search results, there will be a little block that says see photos. You can click into that and scroll through the top 200 photos that have been posted for your business by yourself and by other customers and Google users. And you have the ability, there's a little flag in the upper right corner. You click on that and it will give you an option to choose. We frequently see that there are photos that appear for businesses that shouldn't be there because of inaccurate GPS coordinates. So if somebody is standing outside of your business looking across the street in the other direction and taking a picture of a car accident, and then that photo, because they clicked submit all on their phone with some prompt from Google Maps, that will then end up associated with your business, because the GPS coordinates and the metadata for that photo look like it's right outside of your business, but it's not actually a photo of your business. So that would be not a photo or a video of that place. And we see all sorts of very strange things. I think we've actually used every single one of those policy violations at one point or another at this time. This is actually, you can't really see it because of this prompt, but this is a photo of 2 emus, and it was posted to the listing for the convention center in Branson, Missouri. And having been there, I can authoritatively say there are no emus in the general vicinity. So that was one that, you know, was probably giving people kind of the wrong idea. Oh, you can see the emus right there. That was giving people kind of the wrong idea about what they were going to find at the convention center. So that's the kind of thing that you can get removed pretty easily. Sometimes, if you flag something, it does go to a human moderator. You might catch somebody on the wrong day, or they might not see what you're seeing. We have had some success with flagging photos a second time. Sometimes that's what it takes. It will, after you flag it, it won't just disappear right away. It generally takes about 7 days for that process to sort of play out. So if you go back a week later and you still see that photo, try to flag it again, and that can sometimes help. However, if that doesn't work and you're really certain that that is a photo that should not be there, customer support down at the bottom of that menu bar on the left side of the GMB, once you've logged in, you can actually get a support person to review that, because you know, sometimes you know, they're not all familiar with you know, with every part of the globe, and they might not understand why you're flagging something. But that does have to be for a policy violation. It can't just be because somebody posted a photo that is of your business that you wish they hadn't posted. So like if they showed up and, you know, the bathroom was a mess for whatever reason and you wish they hadn't posted that photo, that's not actually one that will automatically be capable of being removed, because it is an accurate image, even if it's not your best day. So one extra tip here is just to set the cover photo for your business. So you can actually prioritize to Google which image you think should be sort of front and center for you. This is not 100% infallible so far as placing that image. You know, if you place kind of a mediocre photo in there and it finds a better photo, it will use what it thinks is a better photo, but probably about 75% of the time that's going to work for you, as long as you're presenting a pretty appealing image. So, you know, you do have that sort of ability. You can also set, you can identify what your logo is. Don't use your logo as your cover photo. That is a surefire way to get the algorithm to pull in a different image. But you can identify what your logo is, and then that will actually help that appear in some places where it's relevant. So you know, choose a cover photo that definitely sort of tells that story of whether it's, you know, an interior, an exterior, you know, your product or service, you know, that kind of thing will go a long way.
Okay, number 7 is about questions and answers. And questions and answers is really a fantastic component of your business listing. It shows up in your knowledge panel. So when you look in the knowledge panel, you scroll down, it's been moved around a couple of different times. There's a section there that says ask a question. It will show whatever the most popular questions and answers are for your business. Okay, so here we're asking the question, do you have a gluten-free menu? It actually gets sent to you. If you've done that checkbox, it will get sent to you to let you know that someone has asked a question. And it's an incredibly rich way of communicating both with customers who have questions to be able to answer their questions, but they're also part of your listing. So it's that sort of frequently asked questions where people have, you know, where you are answering a question you have to answer over and over again because it's part of your listing. The tricky part about this is that it isn't in GMB. It's not in the Google My Business dashboard. Okay? It is only in the knowledge panel itself, and the way that you get to it is a little bit different than going through Google My Business. And I'll show you that contributes to one of the key problems here that we will look at in just a minute. So this is an example that I love. This is a racetrack Okay, and someone has asked the question, when is the fall motorcycle meet? And this helpful local guide has answered, I'd say in the fall. That's super helpful. Thank you for doing that. In this case, this one's actually been removed, and this illustrates very much kind of what the whole ecosystem looks like. Here's, Mr. Smartass answered this question. This person said, I think it's the third weekend in October. Also not helpful. Well-meaning, right? They were trying to provide, but they don't really know the answer. They're just answering it because because they were prompted to do that on their phone. I think it's the third week in October. That doesn't help. This person, always the second week of October, there's an authoritative answer. But that really should have been the owner who answered that question, not a local guide. And the reason that the local guides answer that, there are 50 million local guides worldwide, and they're getting prompted about this stuff all the time. The median response worldwide for local guides is 20 minutes. So the ownerships, like the ability for owners to respond to that, you would have to respond faster than 20 minutes on average to beat the local guides to answering those questions. But you can still answer them, and it will show from the owner, and in a lot of cases those will end up being those authoritative answers, because you have a real answer which people are going to trust more than something like, I'd say in the fall, or I think it's the third week in October.
You can't get rid of those?
Okay? No. Well, we can talk about that. There's a couple of other things going on there. This is a study that Moz did. If you know Moz, they do organic search stuff, search engine optimization. And they did a little study. This is actually at the end of last year. They just looked at 123 San Francisco area businesses. And of those businesses, 25% of them had questions posted to the questions and answers in their knowledge base. Yeah, that was last fall. It was right after it came out. I'm going to guess that number is more like 75%. Okay? But at the time, 25% of them had questions posted into their knowledge base. What percentage of the owners had answered those questions? 0%. 0% of the owners had answered those questions. 25% had questions posted, and none of the owners had answered those questions. Again, because for whatever reason, it exists outside the Google My Business ecosystem, so it's not exactly clear how to get there. I'll show you how to get there, but that's contributing to what that number is. Hopefully now, if we look at that, so that was last year, if we looked at this again, this number would be much higher, it would be closer to 100, and let's hope this number is quite a bit higher there too, as people get more exposure to questions and answers. Okay, so remember we looked at this before, and we said settings, you want to make sure that you know when you get a review. Same with questions and answers. The easiest thing to do is to go into settings and make sure that you have this box checked so that you'll get a notification, you'll get an email to the account that owns that business every time someone posts a question. And that will help you to be able to respond to those, because at least you know when they're happening. You don't have to go digging around in your knowledge panel looking for it. This is what the email looks like. It says someone has a question, okay, and then you can reply, and it'll take you right over here to the search panel. This is the only place you can reply. You can actually only do it through the knowledge panel, either on your phone or on the Google results page. Okay, it brings up, this is a mode, and you can answer the question. You can see that it says it is from the owner. Okay? So you get the notification, you can answer the question, and then I'll show you a couple of other tricks for this. If you have an answer that isn't any good, just like when we looked at photos and we looked at reviews, you can flag them, you can report that, okay? And then you can answer one of these things. Off topic no longer applies, advertising, hate, violent, or inappropriate, incorrect information, which of course this one would fall into that category. I'd just like to point out I did not report that one because I thought it was so fun. But clearly someone did, because it did get removed, or something else, and then it gives you a little box to put something in there about the questions and answers. Again, if you have something that's pretty clear cut, that doesn't make any sense, you can go in and flag them. These are a little more flexible than some of the other things. So that can get removed that way. And then the other thing that you can do, so there's two other things you can do. You can also post your own. This is kind of an interesting part. So remember earlier we looked at the reviews, and you're not supposed to review your own business. Questions and answers, you were encouraged to post your own questions and then answer them. So if you have a list of frequently asked questions that customers ask you, take them, go into your knowledge panel, go down here where it says questions and answers, and ask your own question. You'll get this same little deal, okay? So you're going to ask a question, and then you're going to post it, and then you're going to write out for that post whatever the answer to that is. So that's a way that you can try to seed that and kind of move around some of the questions and answers in there, like putting the ones that you think are most relevant into there. Hopefully they are relevant to the customers, and we'll kind of raise them up to the top. Now the other thing that you can do is there's a thumbs up, there's no thumbs down. but there is a thumbs up for the answers. So you can go through and thumbs up your own answers, which certainly one thing to do, but you can also thumbs up the ones that are at least correct, right? And so in that case where the guy said, I'd say it's in the fall, you can't thumbs down that, but you could thumbs up everything else that was in there, which is essentially a down vote for that one. There's not a ton of people who are using that thumbs up, thumbs down right now, so there's quite a lot of influence that is coming from those, just that little act of saying this one is helpful or this one wasn't. Okay, so you post your own questions and then go in and upvote your own answers, and then obviously upvote other questions and answers that you think are really helpful or relevant to your customers. Okay, we've talked a lot about the getting notifications, and those are the email ways to do that. If you really want the phone, like the most immediate answer to that, there is a setting to do that is in Google Maps, in the Maps app, and there's a setting that will ping your phone every time one of these things happens. It's the easiest thing to get to. Are you ready? I'm just kidding, it's ridiculous. Okay, I don't know. This is what it is. You want to take a picture of this, you'll get a copy of this later, you can look for it. You have to go to the Maps app, then you have to go to Settings, and then Notifications, then People and Places, and then Business Listings. But if you check that little box, your phone will ding every time someone posts a photo, posts a review, posts a rating, asks a question, any kind of interaction that they're having with your business information, it will give you a notification on your phone that that is happening. So that's the most immediate way to get access to any of those, is using this completely intuitive process of setting up the notifications. Okay?
Posts is another free tool that has been released within Google My Business that really provides individual locations with a lot of opportunity to reach customers within search results and also other locations where the business listing and knowledge panel appear. So posts are essentially just a kind of a rectangular unit where you can add photos, videos, links, calls to action, these types of things, and you can share anything from news to special offers to events and these types of things. And it is completely free, and it will reach anyone who sees your knowledge panel. So within Google My Business, on that menu on the left, you'll see the posts section, and that will lead you to a little content management widget, which will essentially guide you through whatever type of content unit that you want to be creating. So you can share news, add photos, add videos. Events we've seen a lot of engagement with event information. So if you're a location that hosts semi-regular events, that's a great way to spread the word about that. New products, coupons, those types of things. You can add text, you can add links, you can choose a call to action button, and a lot of other interesting things. When it comes to this, so this unit is basically a little rectangle that shows up on your knowledge panel. It is a decent amount of real estate, especially if somebody's looking on mobile. But it is not necessarily always what someone is going to look for, so you want to have content in there that's going to get their attention. You want to have a bright, sort of colorful photo. You have about 100 characters before that message truncates. So you can have longer messages, but that requires somebody to click through and read the whole thing. So you don't want to bury the lead when you're writing text. You want to really make sure that you're hooking people early on, and then either enticing them to click through and read more, or just keeping it sort of short and sweet. If you're using tracking codes for Google Analytics or any other sort of analytics software, if you're using those on an email campaign or in social media, you can also add tracking codes to the link there, so you can actually track how well that traffic is performing when they get to your site. And there are also some analytics that you'll see in Google My Business that will have information about the number of times your post has been viewed, and also some information about clicks and other types of things. So these are some examples of some of the calls to action that you can sort of select when you're putting together a post. So you have a lot of versatility there. The one thing just to remember is that they don't really want a lot of sort of dollar signs and things in the copy that you're writing. So try to keep that sort of to a minimum, where you don't just blow it up with all sorts of big offers. Just kind of keep it simple and focused. So a post will be live for 7 days, and then it will expire. You can schedule posts up to 2 weeks at a time. We have found that having 2 posts live at a time is kind of the sweet spot. You can have just one, that's not a problem. But having 3 or 4, you can have up to like 10, I think. Having 3 or 4 limits the visibility of what's in the 3rd and 4th slot, because people will really only see kind of the first 2, and then they'll have to swipe through to view the rest. You also want to be kind of thinking about timing. If you're promoting something kind of the following weekend for an event or something, you want to make sure that you're getting that up early. We did some tracking of visibility, and we actually saw in several places we saw more visibility on Sunday through Tuesday than we did during the latter portion of the week. That obviously will vary business to business, so you'll want to kind of do some experimentation of your own, but you want to give kind of a good lead time so that people have an opportunity to see it before the actual event that you're trying to promote.
Number 9 is about 360 images. There is almost always an opportunity when we do these audits to improve 360 imagery, and that's because the equipment that is available is drastically better than it was just 16 or 18 months ago. So there's been quite a lot of new equipment that's coming out both on the consumer side and on the professional side that does a much better job of capturing the 360 and stitching everything together and giving that impression. It can be really powerful for customers to understand what is in your business, what it looks like, how big it is, particularly if you have products, right? And this is a really great opportunity for somebody to look at and see, hey, do they have this kind of a product? Do they have this sort of thing that I'm looking for before they make a decision to come down to the business? So 360s can be a great way to engage with potential customers, and almost always an opportunity to improve on what is in your business listing, even if you do have some 360s, unless they're quite recent. So this is an example of one of the pieces of equipment that you can buy. You can buy these off of Amazon for about $400. And you can use your phone, connect your phone to them, and take 360s and post them right to your, just like you were posting a photo, to your business listing. And there's quite a lot of other things that you can do with that. So this is a really good example of a consumer quality piece of equipment that you can buy and do your own 360s. There is also a program which you may or may not have seen someone come by already that is called Street View Trusted, and that is a program for photographers. The bar is quite low for Street View Trusted, just so you know. I'm allowed to say that because I am a Street View Trusted photographer. I was able to achieve that in just one weekend by posting 50 photos into the Street View platform, and then they give you an invite to this. In the past, there were other programs that were more agency-based that were done a little bit differently. They changed this last summer. They changed the way that it works. Anyway, you might have someone come in who is a Street View Trusted photographer, and they will offer to take images, 360 images, and they have the equipment to do that. There isn't really a fixed price, so sometimes people come in and they'll tell you it's $100. Sometimes people come in and tell you it's $3,000, right? So there's quite a lot of variability there. If you do decide to do that, you would want to make sure that you looked at what their portfolio looked like, and made a decision about whether or not that was the right thing for your business. And of course, remember, you can go buy one yourself and do it for $400. May not be exactly the same quality, right? But certainly a good option if you wanted to do something in that way. Okay, the thing that we ask about, people always ask about the 360s. All right, I took the 360, what do I do with it? What else can I do with that 360? It's part of your business listing, but you can also embed it in a blog post or in your website, and it's really easy to do. So you go in, you posted it to your Google My Business, it is part of your business listing, and you go in and you find that image, and then you use that little overflow menu, and then there's two choices in there, either send a link or embed a map. And if you go to embed a map, you can just copy and paste that iframe text right there, you put it right in your blog post, right in your, in your website, in whatever HTML thing you're doing, and it will show this little player that's actually embedded from Google, and you can turn around and look at all of the different angles there. So there's a really easy way to take those 360s and pull them out and put them into another product if you wanted to do that.
Well, one other sort of opportunity that doesn't necessarily contribute to your overall visibility within the ecosystem, but can be a really effective way to engage with your audience is to set up messaging. So this is a totally optional thing, and we would really only recommend this if you feel like it's something that's relevant to you and also that you have the resources to sort of manage appropriately. Because basically what this is an SMS interface that allows people to find a prompt on your knowledge panel that offers messaging. And so, that obviously comes with sort of the expectation of a response at some point. So if you, if you don't feel like you are, staffed appropriately to probably have someone available during business hours to respond within sort of 30 to 60 minutes at most, then this is probably not something that you want to pursue, because that will then have just sort of negative repercussions from a consumer perception standpoint. But if this is something that works for you, it can be a highly valuable tool because it will allow you to provide people with information really quickly and potentially create sort of engagements with consumers in a much more direct and effective way than if they're just gonna go to your website and find a general email address and email that and then get a response in 2 days. People are making a lot more decisions on the fly because they have been enabled by smartphones to get directions and find things at a whim, and so this can really play into that. But it is definitely an opportunity only for you if if you're ready for that. With great power comes great responsibility, So definitely something to consider. That will go directly to a cell phone of your choosing, and so.
The other thing to keep in mind here is these are private, essentially. They're not, the questions and answers are public, they're part of your knowledge panel. The messaging here is really a fake, it's just faking SMS, okay? They type it in as if it's this messaging system, but it's really just an SMS on the back end. So sometimes that can be, people have weird questions, you'll see them show up in questions and answers, like stuff that isn't really relevant. And sometimes having that message in there and having them have that more immediate one prevents them from posting a silly questions and answers. All right, last one is 11, and this one is about Reserve with Google. This was a program that started probably a little over a year ago, and it was initially only for health and fitness. So it was designed for you could schedule a haircut. Right? You could schedule a massage or a yoga class, things like that. And you had to be using one, there were only about 6 of you at the time, you had to be using one of these 6 reservation systems that would then enable, inside the knowledge panel, would enable someone to book a reservation for that haircut or for that massage. So over time, they've expanded those platforms from those initial 6 that were health and fitness, and they've gotten into things like restaurant, which starts to touch more of our tourism businesses, right? It's gotten into restaurants, you can book a table, you can see what is available, you can make a reservation. And then the really interesting part is that, so these are the ones that are currently supported. And then these are the ones that are coming soon. And what we see in this one are a bunch of things that are much more tourism related, like TripAdvisor experiences and Eventbrite and Fair Harbor. There's a bunch of these ticket, like attractions, museums, ticket-based things, events that are being enabled. And I'll show you what this looks like. So if you're thinking about using one of those, it would be a good idea to check this and see, like if you're thinking about using one of these reservation systems, you you look in here and see which ones will be supported most easily by this platform. Here's what it looks like. So Reserve with Google is expanding, that whole program is expanding to all these different types of businesses. Here's an example of the Empire State Building, where you can find tickets. So there's this big blue button here where you find tickets. And then what that does is take you into this map view, this sort of quasi-knowledge panel view. All of this stuff happens inside Google's ecosystem. It never goes out to the website for the Empire State Building. And so it has these are the different times of day, and you can choose those. You can choose how many tickets you want, how much they are, how many people are going. You can fill out all of your information, say how you're going to pick them up, and pay for those tickets all through the knowledge panel, essentially, without ever having to leave them. So it's a really interesting thing that they're doing a lot of development on. There also is a website that goes along with that adds a little bit of extra exposure. So if you go to this website, it will show you things that are currently in Mammoth. You can see here there's a lot of stuff that is health, right? Health and beauty kinds of things. But over time, that's going to expand into all kinds of other stuff, including tourism businesses. So the thing you want to do there is just keep an eye on this section of your GMB dashboard. So this won't be rolled out for all businesses at all times, right? It'll be a slow rollout, and eventually you'll get this option for bookings. But it's going to have to be through one of those integrations. So like tickets or Eventbrite or one of those other ones that's in there, you would have to post your information to that in order to have it show up as part of your Google My Business listing. Now, there's another thing that is happening that is somewhat related to this that is specific to restaurants. So if you are a restaurant type, you may have seen the little purple thing in here, which is an ad. And this is the restaurant owners. This is showing up in restaurant owner knowledge panels without really any indication that that was happening. This is an ad that is purchased by DoorDash that shows up in your business listing that says, hey, we'll deliver food from this restaurant to you, which is great if you're okay with that, right? But not so great if you wanted the people to come in, right? You're going to lose money off the DoorDash. In some cases where you might have to pay a commission or something like that, right? So if you wanted to come to you, then you don't want this in your listing, and so the way to do that is you have to go to whatever this provider is and have them delist you, take them off the list of places that they're willing to deliver to you in order to get rid of that. So that's just an add-on there if you are a restaurant type and you have noticed that is not directly related to the Reserve on Google, but is sort of part of that same data integration that is going on. So increasingly, I think we're going to see more of this in the knowledge panels, where Google is providing opportunities to close that deal inside the knowledge panel and not have to go out to another site to do that, or to go to your website and then yet a third site to do those bookings. Okay? And that is it for our 11 things. So thank you very much for coming. We have plenty of time for questions. I think we had a couple of them here, but thanks very much for coming.
Yeah, no, we have plenty of time for one-on-one, so if you want to just... Do we have general questions, or are they more one-on-one?